welcome to another edition of Reading with Rockfish. Or that way, or like it just to say, hey, happy summer. I'm so happy to see you. Thanks for joining me. It's me, SL Rockfish. If you're joining me from TikTok, good to see you. If you're just joining me because you've subscribed and you're like, hey, I want to hear a book to be read, today's a reading day. Woo, woo. And today I'm going to keep with Dr. Seuss. And Dr. Seuss, because, I love Dr. Seuss. It's summer. It's fun time of life, even with Corona. And we need to, practice some fluency. And this is a different Dr. Seuss book. Because I haven't really heard of it. I don't know if you have. It came from Kohl's Cares. They gave it out at school, and I got a copy. Thidwick, the Big-Hearted Moose was published in 1948. Oh, yeah, that's a long time ago. Do the math, people. 50 to 72 years ago. That's my hint. 1948. 72 years ago. That's even older than me. But what I found most fascinating about this book, it has everything Dr. Seuss usually has, rhymes and things, but it has a very twisted ending for Dr. Seuss. So come on, let's start. But stay till the end or fast forward to the end, because if you can't, I can't be in a video this long, then fine, go to the end part where we finish the book, because it's got a twisted end. But if you want to stay with me, we'll build up to it. Come on. Thidwick, the Big-Hearted Moose by Dr. Seuss. Moose and Seuss, they rhyme. Look at that. There's the title page again. Do. Random House in New York. Random House has been around for a long time. All right, check out the moose. They look a lot like all of his other creatures with the fun faces. Looks a lot like the reindeer, well, the dog that became a reindeer in How the Grinch Stole Christmas. So let's begin. Up at Lake Winnebago, the far northern shore, lives a huge herd of moose, about 60 or more. And they all go around in a big happy bunch looking for nice tender moose moss to munch. Who doesn't like some moose moss? Up at Lake Winnebago one day they were lunching, just strolling along and enjoying their munching. For the moose moss that day was especially fine. For when it happened that Thidwick, the last moose in line, saw a bingle bug sitting, the bug called out, "Hey! It's such a long road and it's such a hot day. Would you mind if I rode on your horns for a way?" Well, who could argue with that? Look at how big his horns are. Look how small the bug is. Look how happy the bug is. "Of course not," smiled Thidwick, the Big-Hearted Moose. "I'm happy my antlers can be of some use. There's room there to spare, and I'm happy to share. Be my guest, and I hope that you're comfortable there." Wow, Thidwick is so nice. So Binglebug picked out a nice easy seat, and the moose went on looking for moose moss to eat. He got the rider, doesn't matter, he doesn't weigh much. Well, an hour or so later, the bug heard a squeak, and he heard the small voice of a tree spider speak. "I say," said the spider, "you've got a fine place. That moose seems quite friendly, has such a nice face. If I got on too, do you think he would mind?" "Hop aboard," laughed the bug, "and I think you'll find that the moose won't object. He's the big-hearted kind." "He's the big-hearted kind. Well, sure he is." "I accept," said the spider with joy and delight, and he started a web on the horn to the right. All right, so he's just a spider. What could go wrong? A spider and a bug. Nothing. While the spider was spinning, he heard a gay song, and a fresh little zinazoo bird came along. He stopped, he stared, and he chirped, "Well, well, well! What a smart place to build, what a great place to dwell. I've been living on trees ever since I was born. But here's something new, why not live on a horn?" Poor Thidwick. "If there's room for two, then there's room there for three. There's plenty of room, laughed the bug, and it's free." Well, isn't the bug friendly with something that doesn't belong to him? Thidwick stopped walking. As well he should. What was all that talking? These guests had caught Thidwick the moose unaware. "Hey," he called out, what goes on there upstairs?" What goes on there upstairs?" "Just building a nest, sir," said the Zinazoo said. and he began yanking hairs out of poor Thidwick's head. Try that, pull a hair out. Ow! And he plucked out 204. 204. Ouch! Don't worry, he laughed. You can always grow more. Then he dozed off to sleep in his fine moose hair nest. Look at that bird. That's bold. This bird, muttered Thidwick, is sort of a pest. But I'm a good sport, so I'll just let him rest, for a host above all must be nice to his guest. Does he? Would you be nice? He just built a home on your head. Thidwick is a little too nice in my book. Let's see. Would you let somebody lay on your head like that? Doo-doo. Besides, now it's getting quite late in the day, and surely tomorrow they'll all go away. But alas, the next morning the sun's early light brought to Thidwick's sad eyes a most unwelcome sight. What could it be? Meet my wife, said the bird. I was married last night, and perhaps, by the way, I should mention to you that her uncle is coming to live with us too. You're a very fine host, so I knew you'd be willing. Well, this is even bolder. Then Uncle a Woodpecker started to drilling. All Thidwick's friends shouted, "Get rid of those pests!" "I would, but I can't," sobbed poor Thidwick. "They're guests." Who? They're guests. You ever have a guest? You're like, okay. "Guests indeed," his friends answered, and all of them frowned. "If those are your guests, we don't want you around. You can't stay with us because you're just not our sort." And they all turned their backs and walked off with a snort. They turned their back on poor Thidwick. He's been ditched by his own friends because of these guys. We call them freeloaders. Now the big friendly moose walked alone and forlorn. That means he was really sad. That's a great word for sad. Forlorn. With four great woodpecker holes in his horn. "What holes?" whispered Herman, a squirrel who spied them. "What holes to hide nuts in? Mind if I try them?" "He's gonna jump on too." "They're yours," called the woodpecker. "Get right inside them. This big-hearted moose runs a public hotel. Bring your nuts, bring your wife, bring your children as well." So the whole squirrel family all jumped on pell-mell. Pell-mell, like without any hesitation. They just got on. And the very next thing the poor animal knew, a bobcat and turtle were living there too. A bobcat and turtle, what could he do? Now, what was a big-hearted moose going to do? That's what I just asked. Well, what would you do if it happened to you? That's the same line from Cat in the Hat. Maybe he'd used this line in more than a few books. You couldn't say scat because that wouldn't be right. You couldn't shout scram because that isn't polite. A host has to put up with all kinds of pests, for a host above all must be nice to his guests. So you try to smile and you try to look sweet and you go right on looking for moose moss to eat. What's he gonna do? Poor Thidwick. But now it was winter, and that wasn't easy. You can't find food in winter. Here's a social studies moment. Okay, for moose moss gets scarce when the weather gets freezy. The food was gone on the cold northern shore of Lake Winnebago. There just was no more. And all Thidwick's friends swam away in a bunch to the south of the lake where there's moose moss to munch. Try saying that 10 times fast. Moose moss to munch. He'd watch the herd leaving, and then Thidwick knew. He'd starve if he stayed here. He had to go too. Well, how is he going to do that? He's got a whole city on his head. He stepped in the water, then, oh, what a fuss. "Stop!" screamed his guests. "You can't do this to us. These horns are our home, and you've no right to take our home to the distant side of the lake." Again, bold. "Be fair," Thidwick begged with a lump in his throat. "We're fair," said the bug. "We've decided this by vote. All of those in favor of going say aye, and those in favor of staying say nay." "Aye," shouted Thidwick, but when he was done, "Nay," they all yelled. He lost 11-1. They voted him out of his own traveling. Not nice. We win, screamed the guests, by a very large score, and poor starving Thidwick climbed back on the shore. Then do you know what those pests did? They asked in some more. So now they took his right to go, and they're telling some more people, come on, get on my horns. Come on, get in here. We got some place to live. Poor Thidwick. That's what you call an uninvited guest. They asked in a fox who jumped in from trees. They asked in some mice, and they asked in some fleas. They asked a big bear, and then if you please, came a swarm of 362 bees. Yikes! Poor Thidwick sank down with a groan to his knees, and then came something that made his heart freeze. What could make his heart freeze more than this? Bullets came zinging right past Thidwick's face. Guns were bing, bang, binging all over the place. Guns in a Dr. Seuss. I told you it was going to get twisted at the end. Get the moose, get that moose, Thidwick heard a voice call. Fire again and again and shoot straight one and all. We must get his head for the Harvard Club wall. Harvard shooting at moose? Huh? Yeah, Dr. Seuss. They're shooting at the moose. Violence in 1948. Thidwick took to his heels with that load on his head. With 500 pounds on his horn, the moose fled. 500 pounds? He could have run faster without all those pests, but a host above all must be nice to his guests. Well, thank goodness he's taking care of them. Up canyon, off cliff, over wild rocky trail, with bullets bouncing around him like hail. Up gully, through gulch, and down slippery sleuth, with his hard-hearted guests, raced the soft-hearted moose. Oh my goodness, do you think he's gonna live? I don't know. I told you it was gonna be twisted. Fair warning, it gets a little dark. Then finally they had him. Because of all those pests, he had run out of luck. Because of those guests on his horns, he was stuck. He's stuck. Boom, 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 boom. Bum, 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 bum. He gasped. He felt faint, and the whole world grew fuzzy. Thidwick was finished completely. Or was he? Finished? Not Thidwick. Decidedly not. No, no, no. It's true he was in a most terrible spot, but now he remembered a thing he'd forgot. A wonderful something that happens each year to the horns of all moose and the horns of all deer. You know what happens? Today was the day they would happen to know what's going to happen. What's going to happen? Oh, I'm so scared. Something happens to their horns. Do you remember? If you go to the zoo, you see them sometimes. The old horns come off so that new ones can grow. And he called to the pests on his horns as he threw them. You wanted my horns? Now you're quite welcome to them. Keep them. They're yours. As for me, I shall take myself to the far distant side of the lake. There's a phone ringing. Maybe it's Thidwick. He's ditching the horns. Oh no! What's going to happen to these guys? I don't know. Maybe it's a phone call for him. There's the hunter. There's all the animals. And he swam Winnebago and found his old bunch, and he arrived just in time for a wonderful lunch. At the south of the lake, where there's moose moss to munch. Thidwick is happy. His old horns today are where you knew they would be. His guests are still on them, all stuffed as they should be. As they should be? Dr. Seuss, that's a terrible ending for these guys. They all died. He got them. They stuffed them. Thidwick's free. Yay! Told you it was a twisted end for Dr. Seuss book. Who knew? Luckily, after 1948, he got a little more lighthearted. So, I hope you enjoyed it. I was a little shocked by the ending the first time I read it, and the second time, and probably the third and fourth time. And every time I get to that last page, who'd have thunk? The hunters came from the Harvard Club and shot them all. Not Thidwick, though. He got away. I'm sure there's a moral in that story, and people can read it any way they want. My guess is don't overstay your welcome. That's my takeaway. So, I hope you enjoyed the book. I hope it wasn't too scary for the little ones. And if you're a big kid and you're like, oh my gosh, Dr. Seuss. Yeah, shocker, huh? But that's the way it is. World is full of good and bad. Good stories, bad stories. I still like the story, and I like the drawings, and I like the rhyme. I was just shocked by the ending. But I hope you're enjoying your summer. Thank you again for joining me. And I hope to see you next time with a more, upbeat book. It was good until the last bit. So see you, my friends. Remember, treat others the way you want to be treated. Don't be those uninvited guests and live off somebody's horns. Be a productive person and help your friends out. Okay? Don't take advantage of people. Treat each other the way you want to be treated. And I promise you the world will be a better place. Thank you. Peace, friends.